Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Phoenix and this is the Consumer's Guide to Filmmaking. Well, it's Classics Month again, and this time I actually have a bit of a theme for this Classics Month. Stop making fucking video game movies. Fucking stop it. Video games and movies have just not mixed well. Like, whether it be because you can't really translate a video game into like an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of movie, or because the people making them don't actually give a shit about the source material, like, it just doesn't work. And this trend is only getting worse in the modern times because video game movies seem to be turning into the new cultural zeitgeist, which is ugh. So this month we're going to be looking at a few cautionary tales of why you shouldn't turn video games into movies, and one exception to the rule. You may already know what that is if you look at your subscription feed, but who knows, maybe you don't. Use your own mind, make up your own fucking mind, I don't care. Anyways, let's talk about this piece of shit. Max Payne, 2008, John Moore. This film follows the titular police detective of the same name. Relegated to the cold case unit, Max spends his days tracking down the people who killed his wife and child. During his investigation, his wallet is stolen by a prostitute named Natasha. When Natasha ends up dead, the case begins to break open, and when Natasha's sister, Mona Sachs, becomes involved, Max must navigate a swamp of criminals and junkies to find the truth. Wow. Max Payne is truly one of the films ever made, starring noted beater of Vietnamese men, Mark Wahlberg. Breaking this review into two sections kinda, I feel I should start with this first statement. This film understands what Max Payne is. In terms of a visual aesthetic, director John Moore does an okay job of capturing the neo-noir aesthetic of the game. The heavy use of shadows, the use of very contrasted and stark lighting reminds me a ton of the comic panel cutscenes from the first two games. I could also maybe concede that this director was aping off the style of Sin City, but that's neither here nor there. This film also made use of some surreal imagery and weird choices that the first game was known for. The flashbacks to when Max's family died, while not as inspired as the video game, were at least interesting to look at. The highly saturated orange tint of the screen was certainly memorable. Despite it confusing other people, I thought the Valkyrie imagery was pretty neat. The CGI in the film was a little shit. But I respect the idea, that whole Valkyrie shtick and all the Norse mythology nods were in the game, so. I also really dug how it was constantly snowing in this movie. In the first game, the events of the game took place during a snowstorm, and that added a ton to the dark atmosphere of the story. This film's constant wintry backdrop adds a ton to the visual aesthetic, that neo-noir sort of style. There was also a good amount of bullet time sections, and that was, a thing in the game. Those shootout sequences in this movie could be pretty damn fun. But now we go into part 2 of our review, and we start this part with the following statement. This film fundamentally does not understand what made Max Payne good. Let's start with the fact that none of the music from the game is in this fucking movie. Imagine the audacity of not starting or ending this movie out with the iconic main theme of Max Payne. That piece would have made the opening or closing monologue have that much more impact. Using some of the music from Max Payne 2 would have made the action sequences really go hard. Hell, even some of the butt rock passages from the first game during the action sequences would have helped a ton. But no, all we get is the most generic, cut and paste, fucking mid-ass action thriller orchestra music known to mankind. Then there's the fucking script. Just imagine not letting Sam Lake write the Max Payne movie. Like, all he would have had to do was cut and paste the game's script. Sure, like rejigger some things to translate a video game into a feature film, but nothing fundamentally would have changed about the story. Writer Bo Moore's script is something that instead just vaguely resembles the first game, but chops it up to the point where it is completely unrecognizable to anyone who played the first game. This can be seen when we examine the broadest scope of what we can look at. This script is so clunky with how it structures its story and what Max Payne's character is like. The game starts out with the trippy flashback sequences to explore why Max Payne is going on the warpath. Instead, in this movie, we get clunky movie exposition that bogs the pace of the film down. The game has such a breakneck pace, with every action and reaction pushing the plot forward and everything intelligently and cleverly tying together. There were plenty of swerves throughout the game as well that were well set up. This film had none of that, and played out like an overly long episode of a cop drama. In terms of antagonists, I think BB is just so fucking weak compared to Nicole Horn. Like, okay, you were Papa Payne's partner on the force, and now you had to take out Max's wife because she was gonna blow the whistle. Just fuck off with that generic movie bullshit, and fuck off with your bland character. The reason why Max is such a tragic character in the game is because the wife's death was preventable. She got the wrong piece of paper and pissed the wrong people off, namely a Viper's hag that just wants to make money. Like, sure, BB has kinda the same motivation, but they tried so desperately to add to it that it fell flat on its face. Then we get into the weird, random little changes that were made to each character. So, Max is a cold case detective now, and his wife's case was sent to the cold case unit? What? Max joined the DEA specifically to hunt down the people behind Valkyr because they were the ones who killed his family. It's cleaner and makes more sense in the game. Also, Mona Sachs is Russian now? So now I have to assume she's working for Vladimir Lem? Why though? She's the daughter of Angelo Punchinello, the mobster who is distributing Valkyr, and that's how Max and Mona get tangled up. I can give or take Jack Lupino being a military man, because he was honestly pretty close to what the game presented him as being. Like, fine. Also, whose decision was it to cast Ludacris as Jim Bravura? I don't exactly think ludicrous when thinking of who to cast as Jim Bravura, noted white New Yorker, presumably of Italian descent. Okay, before we move on, this film also has a post-credits scene. Like, wow, okay. So, in this post-credits scene, Max and Mona meet up, and it implies they're gonna go after Nicole Horn. This, then, also implies that they're probably gonna run into Alfred Woden at some point. Like, cool? I guess I would have been morbidly curious to see how this director would have handled the fall of Max Payne. Thankfully, though, we will never see that fucking abortion play out. The cast in this film do well enough with the material, I suppose. Mark Wahlberg was a smart casting decision from a business standpoint. He was pretty hot shit in the fucking 2000s. He really just didn't gel with the Max Payne tone, style, and character, though. Like, bless him for trying, but he couldn't quite deliver the monologues like James McCaffrey does. If it were my call, Max Payne felt like a Sean Penn or an Edward Norton sort of role. That's just me, though. Amaury Nolasco of Prison Break fame was oddly fun as Jack Lupino. He captured that character and his psychosis really well. But oddly enough, the saving grace of this film was Mila Kunis as Mona Sachs. She was really good. Like, she nailed that character. And she felt like she was ripped right from the game with how she carried herself. I would have actually loved to have seen her take a stab at the Max Payne 2 material. Shit. So just to reiterate what's gonna happen this month, you know, video game movies have been a thing since like the late 80s or 90s, and we just still haven't learned our fucking lesson with this. And now it seems video game movies and shows are replacing fucking cape shit as the pop culture zeitgeist. And now we may never learn our fucking lesson. Especially with people praising things just so blindly. Max Payne is just another reminder that unless you can truly capture the game's story and spirit, you shouldn't fucking bother. Just a meandering, sloppy script and some mid-direction results in this hour 40-minute exercise in wishing I was just playing Max Payne 1. I have a review on the channel, you should watch that. Anyways, fuck this movie. 4 out of 10. Catch you later, guys.